Let's get into it. Grab your word. Grab your word. And I want you to turn with me to two places. I want you to turn with me with two places. Place number one will be Mark chapter 12, verse 28 through 30. And then the second place will be 1 John chapter 4, verse 18 through 21. Again, Mark 12, 28 through 30. And then 1 John, as they say, 4, 18 through 21. Now, let me lead you into this text that we're about to embark upon in Mark. Jesus has given the parable of the vineyard owner or the vineyard lord, which speaks to the rejection of the chief cornerstone. The chief priests and scribes sought to trap him. He then goes on to differentiate between God and Caesar, which silences the Pharisees. He then successfully debates with the Sadducees concerning resurrection. And so here we have in Mark 28, and one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together and perceiving that he had answered them well, I said he perceived that Christ had answered them well, he asked him, which is the first commandment of all? And Jesus answered him, the first of all the commandments is, hear, O Israel. Somebody say Shema. He said, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love. Wait a minute. And thou shalt love. Somebody say, and thou shalt love. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. Let's move to John, 1 John there, 1 John rather, chapter 4. And it says this, verse 18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made in perfect love. We love him because he first loved us. If a man say, I love God, and hateth his brother, he is a liar. For he that loveth not his brother whom he hath seen, how can he love God whom he hath not seen? And this commandment have we from him, that he who loveth God love his brother also. I want to give you part 9 of this response series, and it says simply, to be love. To be love. Take your seats. God sets the precedence for love. He sets the precedence for love. God is love innately and entirely. Now, we've established that response signifies an event or an inquiry that has already occurred. Get this, we can only respond with love if we're with love. Let me say that again. We can only respond with love if we are with love. Catch this or consider this, that a woman cannot be with child unless she is pregnant. A woman cannot be with child unless she is pregnant. And in order for her to be pregnant, that means that she has had to receive the seed from the father. And not only has she received the seed from the father, but her body has to respond accordingly. That makes sense? So when her body responds accordingly to the seed that the father has given her, then she becomes with child. And the job for the woman, let's say the bride, the job for the bride is to produce like kind. Wait a minute. You don't receive seed and produce a dog. Not humans. You receive a seed to produce that which God created to be produced out of mankind, be it woman or man. That makes sense? So she has to produce in like kind. Somebody say like kind. Yeah. She's got to produce in kind. Now, Mark's text says this: thou shalt love with all thy heart, soul, mind, and strength. The heart, the soul, the mind, and strength. Y'all see that? These are the four corners. These are our four corners. This, what we need to accomplish, what God truly intended for us to embody, y'all hear me? What we really need to accomplish, what God has set us forth to embody, we need something else because we've got four corners to love him with. And he tells us those four corners. Y'all with me? He says you need to love me with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. But see, the thing that sets this whole thing into motion is him. He said, you've got to love. That means in order for you to love with these four corners, you actually need a fifth corner. That fifth corner, I like to call it the chief cornerstone. Because without the chief cornerstone, you can't love anything properly. You can't love with something that you don't have. He sets the precedence for love. He has to give you love and then tell you what to love with. Does that make sense to anybody? Oh, don't worry. It'll set up a little bit later. Somebody say that's grace. Yeah. Let's go a little further. For God so loved, he gave. God so loved that he gave. To whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have what? It's interesting that he said that I gave my son, I gave this second Adam, if you would. I gave this second wind, if you would. I gave this second wind that man may have everlasting life, because the first wind I blew into man, and when I created the first Adam, I gave him life. So the first response that God has to man is what? To live. And so now God is saying, I need you to respond again so that you just won't have life, but you'll have everlasting life. Does that make sense? Say, I got to be responsive. I got to be responsive. Consider this. God gave the fivefold for the perfecting. I said he gave the fivefold for the perfecting of the saints. Is that not the word? Now, the fivefold represents the hand of God. Are you with me so far? Five wounds were on his crucified body. 2 in his hands, 2 in his feet, and 1 in his side. 5 wounds. He gave his life for the remission of sins. Now, interestingly enough, the body has 5 points: your head, your 2 hands, and your feet. Just thought it was interesting. Then God gave. Say, he gave. He gave 10 commandments. But there's something interesting about these 10 commandments. These 10 commandments came on 2 tablets. Now, in regards to how they were written out, there are 5 commandments that tell you about one thing, and there are 5 commandments that tell you about another thing. The first 5 commandments instruct you how to have a relationship with God. The second 5 instructions tell you how to have relationship with man. Wow. He gave 10 commandments, but it was 5 and 5. He gave those commandments in the Pentateuch, otherwise known as the Torah. Now, y'all got to excuse me because I got a little bit giddy when I started looking at all this, right? The Pentateuch, which is the Torah, which happens to be 5 letters, by the way. But somebody say that's grace. That's grace. I was setting y'all up. Y'all just had to catch it. So that's grace. And so when I looked at this, I said, hold on, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that I needed the chief cornerstone to do all this stuff? He said, no, what I was trying to tell you, and I know y'all think that I'm crazy, but he said, I got 5 on it. Y'all excuse me. And thou shalt love, saying thou shalt love. I like to offer, to be loved, thou shalt be responsive. I said, to be loved, thou shalt be responsive. Because we've heard love is what it does. Does that make sense? Listen real good. First responders take certification courses. First responders take certification courses. In the natural, a first responder must obtain CPR training. Now, I know some of y'all are like close personal relationship. No, the other CPR. I was talking about in the natural. I wasn't talking about the spiritual right there. But they got to take CPR. It's interesting to me about the CPR. If you listen, you're going to catch this and get happy like I got happy. And one of the things, amongst the many things that you have to do in CPR, one of the things that they train you to do is called rescue breathing. Never mind. I said it's called rescue breathing. That's one of the things. There's another thing that they have to do as well. They have to complete a state-approved course. What state are you in? They have to complete a state-approved course, which includes airway management. I ain't going to even get into it because I'll get stuck in that vein, I'm telling you. Airway management and some other things. Matter of fact, there's 26 lessons, and the particular thing that I was reading about is 26 lessons that are involved in this. So it's just not any old thing. It's 26 lessons that include knowing anatomy, physiology. Do you understand what I'm saying? So to be a first responder, you got to know a little bit about anatomy. How about knowing about the body of Christ anyway? You got to know a little anatomy. Then you got to know the airways. Somebody say Holy Ghost. I'm just saying what I'm talking about. You hear what I'm saying? You got to know how to make proper assessments. You got to know how to have patient assessment. You got to know what you're looking at. Because you got to respond according to the injury. You got to respond according to the emergency. Does that make sense? So that means that sometimes you're going to actually have to listen to somebody instead of preaching all the time. Hello, somebody. You got to ask them sometimes because you can't see the injury all the time. Oh, God, help me. I said, you can't see the injury all the time because there's some people walking around right now. They look like they're healthy, but they're damaged on the inside. But nobody's asking them questions because we haven't learned how to be first responders. Does that make sense? I said, you can't just love God and not love your brother. Are you with me so far? Now, then the next thing they have to do is they have to take a certification examination. Let a man examine him. Yeah, anyway. But you know why do you do that particular examination biblically? The Bible tells us, he said, let a man examine himself to see whether God is in him. Does that make sense? How you going to love somebody if God is not in you? You can be affectionate for somebody. You can care for somebody. You can have compassion for somebody. You can be all hot and bothered about somebody, but you can't love them unless you love God. Why? Because God sets the precedence for love. You can't redefine it just because of the way you feel about it. Does that make sense? But you got to go through these certifications. Not only do you have to take the certification exam, but you got to pass it. Then you can be certified. We want to be certified before we pass anything. We want everybody to certify and verify who we are, and we ain't passed nothing. You ain't been saved 2 minutes. You want to be somebody apostles. Get out of my face, man. You want to be somebody pastor and don't know a lick of word. You just feel good. You've been saved all your life, but ain't helped nobody. Help you. God never puts us in a position that is stagnant. He always wants us to grow. Do you understand what I'm telling you? You know how I know this? Because of what he did to that fig tree. Fig tree, I expect you to bear fruit. You have no fruit, well, you won't be bearing fruit ever again. Because you didn't, because the fruit tree was unresponsive. Does that make sense? The fig tree was unresponsive, and I said it before and I said it again. Fig leaves ain't never took a pass in the kingdom. Adam tried the fig leaves and it didn't work for him. Why do we think fig leaves are going to work for us? Well, at least I got leaves. No, baby, he want fruit. Are you hearing me so far? Get this, our first response ought to be love because that's where we come from. Hello? We come from love because we come from God. So our first response ought to be where we come from. You know how when you get amped about something, if you country, all your countryness going to come out of you. You know, when you're talking, you're doing them interviews, you like to get real, correct. And you make sure that you speak a particular way because of the way you want people to receive you. But when you around your folk, though, it changed, doesn't it? Because that's where you come from. So the first place that we come from ought to be love. Isn't that something? We come from there, and that's who we say we with. We say that we're with God. Who you with? Oh, I'm on the Lord's side. I'm on the Lord's side. But then why are you responding with anger? Why is your first response anger? Why is your first response jealousy? Why is your first response envy? Why is your first response quit? If God's first response to us was quit, boy, look at here. Y'all excuse me because I'm on one this morning. God was like, I just can't quit you. I can't quit you. I can't do it, but I will. It's not my will that anybody will perish, but I'm trying to give you an opportunity. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I don't want to do it, but I will. Are you hearing me so far? By the way, God is love. He is love. That makes sense? What does love do? Love casts out fear. We read that, right? It evicts fear. You know that it won't, love and fear don't occupy the same space. Something got to move, right? They do not cohabitate. Do you hear me? They do not cohabitate. And truth be told, that we're missing on perfection because of fear. Our perfection is being compromised because of the fears that we still have. That makes sense to anybody? But love casts out fear. It covers without condoning. I don't know why we think that covering means condoning. God ain't never said that what your stuff was doing was acceptable. He was saying that, okay, I'm going to cover you. Does that make sense? Cover does not include condoning. I don't understand that. We got that thing where somebody does wrong. We don't want to say anything about what they done wrong. No, you've done wrong. I'm not going to sit up here and just put that over your whole life. But I would be doing you a disservice if I told you that everything that you did was right. I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't sometimes say, you know what, I love you to life, but this thing that you're doing isn't the right thing. Does that make sense? We think love is gimme, gimme, gimme. That's our version of love, and I'm about to disrupt some people's thought pattern, misnomer of love. Is that all right? Yes, yeah. So love casts out fear. It covers without condoning. Love is not prideful. Right? Y'all shouldn't even be shocked at this. Love is not prideful nor selfish. It is not ill-intended, and love never fails. Somebody say, that's Bible. That's Bible. Follow me here. We love him because he first loved us. We love him because he first loved us. Again, God sets the precedence for love. He is the Alpha. He is the Alpha and the author of agape and ahava. He is the author and the Alpha of agape and ahava. Now, ahava, we know that the Bible was primarily written in two languages, Hebraic and the Greek, correct? So we say ahava, which is Hebraic for love. And then we say agape, which is the godly tense, because we got eros, we got sturgos, we got those other ones. But we say agape for perfect, godly love in the Greek. Does that make sense? It's interesting to me that he would choose these words, to have these words be chosen, even in languages that he broke up. It's interesting how God does things to me. So these two primary languages, which our text, which we get our word from, the two words that describe the love of God are ahava and agape. He's the Alpha. And it seems to me that both of these words begin with the first letters of their respective alphabet. I'll just come back over here to the text. It's just a little note. So, I'm just saying. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. This is just the stuff, you know. Ahava is predicated. The word ahava, the actual root word of ahava means give. The root word of ahava is give. So I told you sometimes we think love is give me. Truth be told, I don't want to have to walk it all the way out. We want to think that love is reciprocity. That's relationship. Let me clear this up real quick. Because we think love is reciprocity. If love was only reciprocity, that means that God would not have sent his son to die for you and I, because we were not reciprocating. While we were yet sinful, Christ died for the ungodly. Love ain't necessarily, love can't go one way. It did for a long time. This is why sometimes you feel in love by yourself. Because love can't go one way. I don't want to mess with y'all. I'm just talking about, did he not love us before we loved him? Were you not a sinner for years? I know you got saved at 2 years old, so maybe your time frame ain't that long, but I didn't get saved at 2. So I had some time being a sinner. That makes sense? That's not a proudful statement. That's fact. That's truth, right? So we were sinners first, but God said, you know what? I love you so much that I'm going to give you something. For God so loved that he gave. And then he didn't stop giving at his son. Then he gave us the fivefold. He had already given us the commandments. Huh? Isn't that something? That he had put 5 on it. Anyway, let me stop. Get back over here. But ahava is predicated on giving. God so loved he gave. Ahava is a verb and a noun. It's a verb and a noun. It is an act of doing. Does that make sense? So love is what it does. That makes sense? And it's directly connected with obedience. They that worship the Lord must worship him in what? Spirit and in truth. What is worship when you get down to the get down? Worship is obedience. No, it's not a tone. No, it's not just lifting your hands. No, worship is obedience. Because obedience will have you make a church folk mad, because everybody will be in worship laying on the floor and you'll be running around the church clapping your hands. And somebody will come up, we were in worship. I was too. I was too. If we're going, so you telling me that when you prostrate before God, that you will be in obedience? Yes. Okay, well, God told me to run around church and clap my hands. Oh, well, you know, we ought to all move as one. If your body all moved as one, you would never move anywhere. Never mind. If your body all moved as one, you would be at a standstill. Your body moves as one unit. Does that make sense? But when I'm standing still, my heart got to keep beating. Hello, somebody. Sometimes my hands ain't moving, but my feet are moving from side to side. Do you get what I'm telling you? I hope you're receiving this. John's text says this: we love him because he first loved us. Furthermore, he who loveth God must love his brother also. He who loveth God, love his brother also. Romans 13:8 says this: owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. Wait a minute. I thought we weren't under the law. That's why you got to be careful which way you swing that particular phraseology. I thought we weren't under the law. You better understand what law you talking about. He said, because you know what I'm saying? Because I can't say this, but nobody but me. I'm trying to be a law-abiding citizen and a first responder. Do you hear what I'm telling you? I'm just trying to be a law-abiding citizen and a first responder. If he's not first in my life, then I'm not following the law. Or you can try and cancel out all other ones that you want to. Cancel that one out. That's why you got to be careful with this stuff that you just swing out there. You got to have some knowledge behind what you're speaking. We're not under law, so you don't have to love God. Oh, no. So you're under the law then. You're not under the law of sin and death. Hello? You're not under the law of the fathers. Does that make sense? But God has set in place, he said, look, you need to love your brother. You understand? How can you say that you love me and you can't love your neighbor? We get in church and don't even want to talk to our neighbor. I'm tired of talking to my neighbor. Okay. So you want a dysfunctional body. Okay. I understand every time you don't want to be tugged on also. I can get with you on that one. But you don't want to say nothing to them. You want to say God bless you something. You ever been sitting one of them people and the preacher tell you to say something, you look at them, you say, I ain't saying nothing. I'm just have to be disobedient today. Anybody ever did that? Then I looked at them like, oh no, we ain't talking. We are not on speaking terms. I saw that unit. I dare you to say something. You ain't got to dare me to say nothing. I'll talk to my other neighbor over here. That's why I let them crazy preachers be like, that wasn't the right neighbor. Talk to the other one. Yeah, he wasn't the right one. All right, let me talk to me mugging me because I'm trying to speak life into you. Does that make sense? Lord have mercy. But we've got to love one another to fulfill the law. Now here's a word of warning. If passion regresses, complacency will rise. If passion regresses, then complacency will rise. Let me give you some biblical background before that. It's interesting that God would deal with this in the first church of the 7 in Ephesus. He said that I got an issue with you. Not all the this good stuff that you've been doing. I got an issue with you, Ephesus, because you abandoned your love at the first. Huh? You abandoned your first love. That's how we like to say it. You abandoned your first love. You're not doing the things that you used to do when you first heard about me. You're not as responsive as you used to be because your passion has become dull. And now because you're not passionate, now instead of being in love, you're in routine. So you still go to church. You still, I'm just using an example, sing on the praise team. You still preach the word. You still dance. Still play drums. Still play keys. You still deacon. But there's no love there. It's just routine. It's what you do now. You used to be the first one at the door. Now you drag. Another Saturday, another Sunday, another church service. I'm going to show up because this is where everybody expects me to be. This is where all my friends are. This is my social circle. I can't go back to the world because the world will reject me. So I know I can't go back there. I'm not passionate. And then here's the thing. We get upset. And I was reading, somebody's come about a good friend of mine, Apostle Owen. It's like, people ain't mad at the church. They're mad at the representatives. They're mad at the representatives because we are not first responders. We're not first responders. We want everybody to give to us. Yes, sow into me, pray, good measure, pressed down, shaking together, running over. That ain't love. God is love. And what does God do? Everything God does is predicating on giving, right? In the beginning, God created. He gave. God is love, right? And he gives all this stuff for his prized possession to live in. He made the world for us to live in it. Does that make sense? He said, I'm going to make this world, and then I'm going to make you for the world. I'm going to make you, and then everything, and y'all know how it is. Adam walk around, everything was responsive to him. He gets to be responsive to God directly. And then because he receives the wrong word, the relationship is cut off, and he tries to put on that fig leaf thing. But God is saying, the first Adam was made a living soul. But the second Adam was made a quickening spirit. Somebody say second wind. Say rescue breathing. Yeah. Rescue. I got to rescue you. I got to rescue you from yourself. I got to rescue you from your thoughts, your ways, your tendencies. I got to rescue you. I got to give you a spirit like mine. That's why you got to be reborn. Yeah, you might have been formed and shaped in iniquity, but not if you reborn. I don't understand why folk keep saying that. I was shaped in iniquity. Okay, well, ain't you saved? First of all, half of them be saying the scripture wrong. But then, okay, if that's the scenario, I thought that you were born again. If we're born again, that means that I come from a different seed. Does that make sense? Now I don't have to do the things that my daddy did. I can do things that my father does. That makes sense to what I'm telling you? But you got to receive that. I can tell you all the time, but you got to receive that. You got to respond to it. That makes sense to everybody? Ephesus abandoned the love it had at first because it stopped being responsible, because it started getting callous to winning souls. It started getting callous because, they were surrounded by us, so they were used to it. But, at first it was all fervor, and then something happened. What happened to our relationship? What happened to that first love? We have to ask ourselves with that question. That makes sense? Like, what happened? I remember when you couldn't stop me from talking about God. Now it's like, okay, if it come up in conversation. I'll wait for them to open the door. I'm not telling you to be belligerent, go kicking down people's doors. I'm not telling you that. But instead of you waiting on the opportunity, why don't you take the opportunity to speak life into somebody? Encourage them in the lead. I ain't saying sit up here and try and drown them in Jeremiah or something like that in your doctrine. I'm not telling you to do that. What I'm saying is, why can't you take the opportunity to show somebody love? Does that make sense? Show them some love. Last word. Recognition is a response. Recognition is a response. This is point 5, just by the way. Recognition is a response. Response renders fruit from the inside out. Does that make sense? Response renders fruit from the inside out. And I love talking about the seed. It'll never get dull to me talking about that seed because of the things that the seed has to go through. The seed, for it to become what it was meant to be, must be buried. So the seed understands darkness because the darkness serves a purpose. Does that make sense? Sometimes you can't see anything, not because you're being wicked, not because you're being disobedient, it's because you're being buried. And the next thing that seed has to do is the seed has to break out of its shell. Am I talking to anybody? It has to break out of its shell. Once the seed breaks out of its shell, it has to have what I call a double breakthrough. And that double breakthrough is one that it's got to break through and find the aquifer, which is the water which is underneath its current level. You understand? Because you know how it's like we go deeper and we go higher simultaneously. That's what trees do. So the seed breaks out of its shell. It has to be buried. It has to actually die. Right? Germination has to die, break out of its shell. Then it shoots one set of branches that you won't see. Those branches extend to the aquifer. So that's one breakthrough. Then the next breakthrough, the one that you do see is above ground. But it's interesting, though, when the seed first breaks ground, it's nothing magnanimous. Huh? If you ever seen when they speed up the film and you see something shooting out the ground, when you first see it break ground, it's nothing magnanimous. And so sometimes we're looking for a breakthrough. And the real breakthrough came that you just rose above the surface. So the seed rises above the surface. Nobody can see what's going on behind the scenes. Nobody appreciates what's going on behind the scenes. But then you finally see the light of day. And you have to keep growing until you're strong enough to bear the fruit that was already in you. Does that make sense? You don't see stems bear fruit. Huh? It has to grow so they can actually hold the weight of what's growing out of it. Does that make sense? I've got to grow in my spirituality to where I can hold what's coming forth from me. And I can only hold it for a season before I have to release it in due season. See, some of us have begun to develop fruit, but we want to hold on to it. Because when you're full of fruit, it looks good, doesn't it? But it doesn't look good if you keep holding that fruit past the time it's been to be released. Huh? And check this out. Oh, God, help me here. Sometimes when you bear fruit, you got to be willing to be picked on. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because some of the fruit drops to the ground because of the weight of it. And you got to snatch that fruit before it gets rotten, right? But there's some fruit that has got to be picked. Say there's some fruit that has to be picked. Don't get so abrasive because you're being picked on. Go ahead and let them get it. I know that's a little bit of a different teaching. I'm just saying what I'm saying. But recognition is a response, and response renders fruit inside out. It's interesting that the first command that he gives man, and I bet you'll look at it different now, is be fruitful and, yeah. See, here's the thing. When we hear be fruitful and multiply, we want to produce our like kind. When he was saying be fruitful and multiply, he was saying make more like me. Do you understand? I don't want you to alter the image and the likeness. Y'all hear what I'm telling you? Ephesians 4:15 tells us that we speak truth in love so that we may grow up into him in all things, which is the head, even Christ. John 13, verse 34 says this, men will know you are my disciples. Men will know, they'll recognize that you're my disciples if you have love one to another. Recognition is a response. We've heard it differently said, you're the only Bible somebody will ever read. The Bible says that we are epistles written. Do you understand what I'm telling you? So sometimes somebody has to see the light that's in me. Does that make sense? I saw a post that was put up, and it was referencing salt and light, and it just brought to me right then and there. I said, salt and light, taste and see. Salt and light, taste and see that the Lord is what? He told you, I need you to be salt and light so that they can taste and see. Whatever I tell you to be, there's a reason for you to be it. When I called the fivefold, it was for the perfected. When I called you, I told you you needed to do some things. I need some fruit out of you. Does that make sense? I need you to love me first so that you learn how to love yourself next, so that you learn how to love others properly. I love you so you can love yourself first and then learn how to love others properly. Because you can't say that you have me and you can't stand them. That makes sense? To be love. To be love. Y'all know, I ain't gonna even lie. A little Coming to America just jumped in my head. To be love. To be love. Oh, what a feeling. To be loved. That's the wrong thing. You think love is a feeling. Love is not a feeling. I don't feel like I'm loved. I don't feel love. Huh? Love ain't a feeling. Love is an action. Do you hear what I'm telling you? Love is, I'm talking about ahava. Ahava is predicating on what? Giving. Everything that God ever did was give. And you better be glad that it was a one-way street. You better be glad it was a one-way street. You hear me? So sometimes, in truth be told in a relationship, you're going to have to be in love by yourself. You're going to have to be, because that relationship ain't going to last if you don't hold up your end of the bargain. You've got to extend your hand in some relationships until they reach back. God was doing this the whole time until you reach back. You've got to be the one to say, I have love, so I'm responsible for reaching. I said, I'm responsible for reaching. I said, I'm responsible for reaching. No, you ain't going to reach everybody. You're not going to reach everybody. But there's some within your assignment that God has told you to reach out to, and you're not. We're not. Does that make sense? His love in me makes me responsible to reach. His love in me makes me responsible as a first responder. If something happens, I need to be the first one to the scene. I need to beat the devil there. Does that make sense? The reason why a lot of people get into trouble is because nobody from the church was talking to them. I know they had an alternative lifestyle. You did too, with your lying, cheating self. Huh? Lustful, prideful self. Right? And somebody responded to you because they saw that you was about to die. And they had to perform CPR on you. Anybody glad grandmama prayed for you? Anybody glad mama prayed for you? Daddy prayed for you? Uncle prayed for you? Auntie prayed for you? Good friend prayed for you? Pastor prayed for you? Prophet prayed for you? Somebody had to be that first responder. It was like, you're dying. And I need you to respond. I need you to respond. Because here's the thing. I'm not afraid of death. It's the perishing that bothers me. Do you understand what I'm telling you? It is appointed to man to die. But he says it's not my will that any man would perish. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I don't want you to have that perish, which means that we can't have a relationship after this point. Death means that death for the believer means that my relationship goes to the next level. Help me, Holy Ghost. I say death for the believer means my relationship goes to the next level. Death for the sinner means that it's over. I know we don't like this kind of preaching, but I'm just saying. You hear what I'm saying? To be loved. It ain't about no feeling. It's action. And the action is giving. Reach one, each one, teach one. If you only get one, do you hear me? If heaven celebrates for one, why are you sitting up here trying to keep a tally? I done bought 10. You didn't bring nobody. No man come unless the Father draw him, so you ain't do nothing. Do you understand? But what ought to happen is that they ought to recognize the God that's in us. Does that make sense to everybody? They ought to recognize the God that's in us. Love needs to be recognized in us and emit from us first. To be loved, I need to be responsive. I need to be responsive in the same manner that God is responsive to me. Does that make sense? Because when I'm responsive to him, that's how I build relationship. Does that make sense? Relationship is built on response. Love is built on reach. Do you hear me? He loved us first. He reached first. And for us to get this relationship, we had to reach back and respond to him. I'm praying that somebody reach out to somebody. I know you done tried to reach out to them before, but maybe this time they'll respond. Huh? Their body ain't gone cold yet. Huh? Their body ain't gone cold yet. Maybe they'll respond when they see love. Maybe they'll respond when they see that salt and that light that we're supposed to have. Maybe they'll taste and see. Maybe they'll respond. You did. Or so you say. But we're responsible. We're responsible. We are agents of response. Ambassadors for Christ. First responders. That makes sense? To be loved is to be responsive to God. Do you hear me? Give God praise all over this place.